Okay guys, today we're going to solve equations that involve the distributive property. So the first thing I'm going to do, as I normally do in my videos, I'm going to start off with our models. Okay, so we saw in the last video how to model something like 2x plus 3, where the x plus 3 is in brackets. So I would start out by drawing an x plus 3, and I would color everything in. So the x gets colored in green because it's positive, and then the plus 3, those are positive, so we'll color that in red. Okay, and then the 2 in front of that means I need two groups of this same thing. So I need to have two copies of this x plus 3. Okay, so now I've got my two rows of that. On the other side of the equal sign, we had plus 2, so I got to write down my two ones there, and they're positive, so I'm going to color them in as well. Okay, and as soon as you've dealt with that, now we're not even really using distributive property anymore. I am solving a two-step equation, which we've done a couple weeks ago. So to get rid of our 6 positive ones, we got to get rid of our constant first. So the way we do that is we're going to add 6 negatives, and we're going to add those 6 negatives onto both sides of the equal sign. Okay, so we'll do it on both sides of our model. Okay, now that gives us on the left, we get a whole bunch of 0 pairs here. The 6 positives and the 6 negatives give us one giant 0 pair. And then our 2 positives and 2 negatives on the right hand side also give us a 0 pair. So those guys go away as well. So what we're left with is we have our 2 x's that are positive, and then on the right hand side we're left with our 4 negative 1's. Okay, and I've got everything sorted into 2 nice equal rows, and I picked 2 rows because there were 2 x's. So if I look, this first row has an x and 2 negative 1's, and the second one also has an x and 2 negative 1's, which means my solution is what's inside each group, which is an x and 2 negative 1's. Okay, so our solution here would be x is equal to negative 2. Okay, and that's the solution for our equation. Alright, we'll only do one with the model today because I want to show you 2 different methods of solving these. Oh, sorry, I went to the wrong one. Let's look at the second example here. So I've got 3 times, and then in brackets we got negative x plus 1 is equal to negative 6. So what I'm going to do is here I'm going to use the distributive property, and I'm going to multiply this 3 into the brackets. So 3 times negative x would give me negative 3x, and then the next term, 3 times positive 1 is going to give me positive 3. So now I have 3x plus 3 is equal to negative 6. Alright, my opposite operation is going to be to get rid of that constant first, so I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides because currently I'm adding 3 on both sides. My 3's on the left are going to cancel out, and we're left now with negative 3x is equal to negative 9. And then I'm going to divide both sides by negative 3. And when we divide both sides by negative 3, we get that x is equal to positive 3, because negative divided by negative turns into a positive. Okay, so we get x is equal to positive 3. Now we're going to go back and just double check that. So let's verify. We've got our left hand side of the equal sign and our right hand side of the equal sign. The right hand side started off as negative 6, so I'm going to put that in. The left hand side, it started off as 3 times negative x plus 1. Okay, and what I need to do is instead of writing x, I'm going to substitute in that value of positive 3. Okay, everything else stays the same in the same order. Okay, so the negative positive 3 really makes it now become a negative 3. And negative 3 plus 1, because it's inside the brackets, becomes negative 2. And then 3 times negative 2 would be negative 6. And we have the same thing on both sides. Okay, so we can use distributive property to expand into the brackets and then solve as we would normally with a two-step equation. Okay, but we do have another method that we can use. So what I can do here is, last time, the first thing I did was I multiplied that 5 into the set of brackets. Well, instead of multiplying by 5, I'm going to actually start off by dividing both sides by 5. Okay, now it's happening to the whole side at once. Okay, so it's not just happening to each of these things individually, it's happening to the whole side all at once. So what's going to happen is, if you think of how our order of operations work, I would multiply everything inside here by 5, and then I would have to divide everything inside there by 5. And that seems like a complete waste of time. How about when I divide by 5 and I multiply by 5, those guys reduce to factors of 1. Okay, so we got 1 divided by 1, and 1 times anything is 1, so I'm going to be left with just what's inside my brackets. On the other side, negative 25 divided by positive 5 is going to give me negative, and 25 divided by 5 is 5. So now I have negative 5 is equal to, and then just what I had in brackets, 3 plus z. And so now I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides, and we get that negative 8 is equal to z. Okay? Well, let's verify, because we tried doing it a different way, and it should work out to be exactly the same thing, but let's just double check. So the left-hand side of the equal sign started as negative 25. On the right-hand side, we had 5 times 3 plus z. Okay, so I'm going to replace the z with that negative 8. So it's now 5 times 3 plus, and then we've got our negative 8 here in brackets. Okay, so inside the brackets, we've got 3 plus negative 8. Well, 3 plus negative 8 is negative 5. And then we've got that 5 in front, and 5 times negative 5 is negative 25. So we still got the same thing on both sides of the expression. So it's your choice. If you've got some distributive property, you can choose to distribute it into the brackets if you like, as we did in example number 2, okay, where I used distributive to multiply into the brackets and then solve the two-step equation. But alternatively, if you would prefer, you can simply divide both sides by that coefficient in front of the brackets, and that might make things a little bit simpler for you. All right, there's solving equations involving distributive property. Have a good week.